in our 9th Party Congress. The resolution we had said warned the country that we are going towards one-party authoritarian rule. The first thing they did on declaration of emergency was also to ban the RSS. The emergency was extreme, manifestation of this continuous erosion of civil liberties and democratic rights of the country. But I'm saying our ruling classes have not learnt any lesson. Our party made a very, I think, perceptive observation.
Hello and welcome to Left Lens. Today we have Comrade Prakash Karat, the former General Secretary of the CPIM with us. It has been 50 years since the internal emergency was declared on the 25th of June 1975. When the emergency was declared, Comrade Prakash was the All India President of the Students' Federation of India. We will discuss with him various aspects of the emergency and the lessons that we have to learn from it today. Comrade Prakash, welcome to Left Lens. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Comrade, what was the political background which led to the imposition of the internal emergency? Was it purely an individual whim, or were there larger forces at play?
Well, if you see the political background preceding the emergency, in 1971, the Congress party, that is the section of the Congress led by Mrs. Indira Gandhi, had won a big victory in the parliament election with the slogan of Garibi Hatao. And that had really roused big support from the people because she promised to abolish poverty, Garibi Hatao.
Yes.
But very soon after that, within the next 2 years, the people were disillusioned. The economic situation started worsening. I think there was some sort of oil shock at that time, and rising oil prices internationally. It led to inflation, worsening living conditions for people, and there was corruption in the various Congress regimes, the state governments which were run by the Congress party, and of course in the central government. So we saw a series of popular movements and agitations. One was the Nav Nirman movement in Gujarat.
Yes.
It was a student movement. If I recall correctly, protesting against the increased prices of food served in some college hostels or messes. But it soon became a big mass movement and eventually toppled the then Congress chief minister. We from the SFI at that time, though we were not a big force in Gujarat, I personally went there as the president of the JNU Students' Union at that time to express solidarity and participate in some of the protests. This was followed by the Bihar movement, came to be known as the JP movement, where that was also a student-led struggle. Chhatra Sangharsh Samiti was formed, and later on they approached Jayaprakash, and then Jayaprakash agreed to join the mass movement, and then it became an all-India movement. This is one aspect of the post-Indira Gandhi 1971 election scenario. The second was rising struggles of the working people, struggles of the workers and of the peasantry and other sections, which culminated in 1974 in the historic railway strike, in which 16 lakh workers participated. It was, I think, lasted for more than 2 weeks at that time. And in support of the railway strike, there was an All India Bandh call. I recall that because when we were in JNU, we came out of the university campus to block all the traffic around. And I had a case against me on that which was used during the emergency to try to arrest me for that case. So there was general turmoil in terms of mass protests and movements. This was leading to the increasing isolation of the Congress party. And the immediate catalyst was the Allahabad High Court judgment unseating Mrs. Gandhi from her seat, parliamentary seat, which immediately galvanized the opposition to demand that she quit as the Prime Minister. So it is in that context that Mrs. Gandhi and her coterie of advisors decided that the way out would be to impose emergency and outwit the opposition, put them all behind bars, and have a period where you suspend democratic rights and civil liberties. So this build-up was taking place, not suddenly it happened in 1975. Our party had in 1972 itself, in our 9th party Congress, the resolution we had said warned the country that we are going towards one-party authoritarian rule. And we were the first party to warn the people of the country that we are heading towards authoritarian rule, because we already were experiencing this in West Bengal under the Congress regime there. They unleashed terror and started suppressing the CPIM and the left. And we said this will not remain confined to Bengal. This will extend all over the country.
You mentioned in the run-up to the emergency that there were working class actions. Under the emergency, what was it like for the working class to live under the emergency?
Well, since all democratic rights were suspended, the workers' right to organize, to protest, forget about even conducting strikes, all that was not allowed. It was supposed to be illegal. So the workers were suppressed in the same way as all other sections of people at that time. The trade unions, many of the trade union leaders were also in jail. At least the more prominent and well-known trade union leaders. So the working class, the emergency also was directed towards disciplining the working class, you see, which, as I said, in the period before the emergency, there were rising struggles of the working class.
As someone who was opposed to the emergency, as someone who was politically aware or active, you were the president of the SFI at that time. How was the emergency experience for you?
Well, I was already cadre of the Communist Party of India, Marxist. Also, I was an activist of the Students' Federation of India. So we had been precisely fighting against the Congress government's policies, Indira Gandhi's increasing authoritarianism. So when the emergency came, it was natural for us to immediately think of how we work out methods and tactics to organize resistance to this authoritarian attack. So, as I said, one of the main currents of opposition was the students' movement. So the SFI became a target of the government. I think two organizations, one is the right-wing ABVP, because they are also linked to the RSS. They had decided to ban the RSS in the emergency. The other student organization which faced maximum attack was the Students' Federation of India. So for all of us, this was the first, what you might call, test that we faced of state repression in a large scale. So because we were all politically conscious, for us it was a challenge we should meet. So if you look at that period, the student leaders, that is the student leaders of the SFI in that period, who had either jailed or who had to go underground, most of them became leading functionaries of the Communist Party of India with Marxist and became part of the topmost leadership. For example, 9 of our office bearers and Central Executive Committee members of the SFI were put under MISA, the detention, and 5 more SFI CEC members were wanted who went underground. Of them, Manik Sarkar, Kodiyari Balakrishnan, those who went to jail, I'm saying.
Yes.
Uddhav Burman, Janardhan Pati, all of them became members of our Central Committee and Politburo of the party.
Yes, yes.
So, as I said, for this generation of students and youth, the fight against the emergency was their first real, as I said, test. And I think that was quite a decisive, formative experience for their future political career.
You mentioned that the students were in the forefront of challenging the emergency. Also, you mentioned that the CPM had foretold that warned the country about the upcoming possibility of an authoritarian regime. But now there are efforts on to portray that it is the RSS that was against this whole thing. As someone who's lived in that time, what was the role of the RSS during the emergency?
Well, we must understand the political spin that was put out by Indira Gandhi and the Congress regime at that time. They said they are facing a threat from right-wing forces, extreme right-wing forces. There's a conspiracy to destabilize a popularly elected government. So the first thing they did on declaration of emergency was also to ban the RSS. And it is a fact that they targeted the RSS, and a large number of the RSS leaders and cadres were put in jail, including Balasaheb Deoras, the Sarsang Chalak. He was also put in jail. So, yes, Indira Gandhi wanted to say, look, these are the right reactionary forces who are after my blood, and I'm cracking down on them. Having done that, after rounding up thousands of RSS Swayamsevaks and Pracharaks and putting them in jail, then we saw a peculiar response from the RSS leadership. Unlike other what you might call non-RSS leaders who were put in jail, like George Fernandez, he was arrested later, many other socialists, etc. The RSS, what they did was, from Balasaheb Deoras himself, they started making overtures to the government and to Mrs. Indira Gandhi particularly. It is on record. Balasaheb Deoras' letters has been published by him in a book as an appendix, where there is a series of letters to Indira Gandhi, to others also, to Y.B. Chavan at that time, who was the Home Minister, to even Bhave, Sarvodaya leader. The tone of all of that is the RSS is willing to cooperate with the government for nation building, for all noble tasks, and appreciating that Mrs. Gandhi is also working for the same thing. So just lay off now, allow us to also join this noble work of nation building, and we assure you full cooperation with what your goals are, aim, etc. This was the tone, you see. That's obviously when the Sarsang Chalak takes this tone, that became a signal for all the RSS people who are in jail. We know at that time itself it was known because uh, it was not a secret. Many of them gave written undertakings uh, to the government through the jail authorities, saying we are willing to support the government's policies program. They had a thing called the 20-point program.
Yes.
We will work to implement the 20-point program, and some of them were actually let off. Not all, but some of them were uh, let off on the basis of the undertaking that they attended. So the RSS played a dubious role. Of course, because they were targeted, now they are claiming that we were the real, victims of the emergency and we are the real fighters against the emergency. It's a fact that they were targeted, but when they were targeted, they couldn't stand the test, which I said.
Yes, yes.
The others stood firm. They couldn't stand by that and they tried to compromise with the Congress rulers and even compromise about the emergency. They didn't even say, let us out, we'll cooperate, lift the emergency. Even that they wouldn't say at that time.
So that kind of a compromise attitude, I guess you can say, has always been in the RSS gene. We've seen that earlier in the freedom struggle also.
Yes. You see, if you read Balasaheb Joris's letters, it's a pale imitation of what Savarkar used to write from the Andaman jail.
You see, during the emergency, you had said that civil liberties, democratic rights, they were all suspended. What has been the after effect of that on our constitutional institutions, on our democracy itself?
The emergency was the first major onslaught against the constitutional rights and liberties of citizens. But according to me, that erosion or attacks on civil rights and democracy had started before. And that is in the nature of the class rule that we have in our country. That is, the ruling class in our country, led by these big capitalists, the big bourgeoisie, they don't really care for democracy. They know they have to maintain the facade of democracy to continue the class rule. But whenever they feel threatened by any popular democratic movement or protest, they would crack down. For example, preventive detention. I'm looking back now. Preventive detention is sanctioned under the Constitution, unfortunately. The famous A.K. Gopalan case. He was in jail, in detention at the time of independence, 15th August 1947. The Supreme Court heard a petition regarding this and said preventive detention is there in the Constitution. So it's that has been a constitutional step to keep him under detention. So some of the seeds in the Constitution and in the legal setup in our country has been misused and extended further. For example, emergency, when you have emergency, they can invoke what is called a Defense of India rules. It's only when there's an emergency. So at various periods of time, our rulers, our ruling class have equipped themselves with draconian powers. It was Defense of India rule during emergency. There was MISA during the emergency. But subsequent to the emergency, preventive detention has come to stay through different laws. I don't know whether in your time, we used to have a POTA and a TADA. POTA, TADA. There's one permanent thing, National Security Act. In UP, the collectors use routinely NSA. NSA is a preventive detention. You're threatening national security. What is national security and what threatens it? Collector decides, of any district in UP. So the emergency was extreme, what you call, manifestation of this continuous erosion of civil liberties and democratic rights of the country. But I'm saying our ruling classes have not learnt any lesson. Our party made a very, I think, perceptive observation after emergency was ended and Indira Gandhi was defeated, that authoritarianism is inherent in our system.
In our system. Yes.
This time it came through Indira Gandhi and the Congress. It can come from even Janata Party, which had fought the emergency. There are forces in the Janata Party who are equally having an authoritarian bent of mind. But it is dictated by class interest. It is not some individual becomes a dictator.
Yes.
It is dictated by the nature of the class rule we have in our country and their class interest. That is why we have said democracy can never be safe in the hands of the bourgeois landlord class of our country. That is our basic position.
It is interesting that you said that it is in our nature, in the class interest of our ruling classes. See, today we have a situation that many are calling an undeclared emergency. How do you compare the emergency from 50 years back to what is happening in the country today?
I don't like the term undeclared emergency because it seeks to equate what was the emergency of 75, 77 to what we have today. According to me, this is much worse and much more than the emergency that we witnessed in 75, 77, the 21 months. Because at that time, as I said, what is the context? The political context I explained. Indira Gandhi and the Congress party wanting to maintain their rule, she wanting to survive in power, and therefore resorting to this maneuver to meet the immediate situation. That is not what we are facing today. In the last one decade of Modi's rule and the BJP as a ruling party, backed by the RSS, here there is a planned, systematic effort to do away with your constitutional liberties and civil rights, democratic rights, freedom of the press, etc. But the way they are going about is not screwed by saying, okay, we have press censorship.
Yes.
They are capturing the press, the media. They're capturing all the institutions and then hollow them out. So what you are facing is more insidious than the threat to democracy and the parliamentary system and the constitutional principles than what you faced during the emergency. It's a much more fundamental effort to reshape your polity and your states, according to me, your state structure itself. So that is a slightly more long-term project. It can't be done in 1 week or 10 days or 2 months. But they've already done in 1 decade, they've achieved quite a bit. So according to me, we are in a worse position today than the emergency. It is not a question of emergency now. It is a permanent truncation of democracy and a full-fledged authoritarianism which has come.
You mentioned that, they're trying to change the state itself. Looking back at your emergency experience, what do you think are the lessons that we can use from then in fighting this currently, especially for the political parties, people's movements?
We talk about the judiciary.
Yes.
The Supreme Court gave one of the worst judgments in the history of the court when they had ADM Jabalpur case, where they said, yes, during emergency, all the rights of citizens are suspended. You can be even shot dead. You see, right to life itself is not this thing. So it shows the fragility of the institutions that we have, the so-called constitutional bodies that we have. So the guarantee, that is the experience of the emergency that we learned from. I can tell you none of these parties, whether it is the RSS Jansangh fellows or the socialists or Congress, all those who are fighting section of the left, that is us, not CPI, all of us who have fought the emergency, when Indira Gandhi suddenly declared, I'll hold elections in then January, none of us really thought she could be defeated. We had underestimated the popular
discontent against her,
anger against her. We underestimated it. It's only when the results came out we realized it's really, a tornado or typhoon, you see. But that taught us a lesson that it's only the people who can be the guarantee. So unless we can mobilize people, we can make people conscious of their rights, and that they become conscious of rights not in abstract way. When you're able to mobilize them to fight for their rights, then they will become conscious of their rights. So the fight against the present day authoritarianism of the Hindutva variety, that also requires patient work to mobilize people against this sort of danger.
Thank you, Comrade, for a very illuminating discussion. With that, we will wrap up this episode of Flash.